Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All judges, welcome to the 2020 NUDC at Trisakti level. We are going to select the best students and we will make them one solid team that will represent Trisakti at the regional level. So the first contestant will be from the Faculty of Economic and Business. She will enter the room in a minute or so. Hold on a second, please. Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum, Divya.
Oke, selamat pagi. Waalaikumsalam. Selamat pagi, Bapak, Ibu-Ibu semua.
Selamat pagi, Divya. Senang sekali Anda bisa hadir di sini.
Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the 2020 NUDC at Trisakti level. We are going to select the best students, the best contestants, and make them into one group, one team that will represent Trisakti at the regional level. So please present your case. And before you present your case, here with us there is Ibu Retno Indriani, Ibu Prayang Suni, Bapak Risat Wibisono, and Ibu Amelia Zuhra as the judges.
Okay, good morning everyone. Good morning, judges.
So now the time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, is there a timer for the time limit of 5 minutes? Will I know when the time has done? When my time is done?
Yes, you are given 5 minutes. I repeat that you will be given 5 minutes, and then the remaining 10 minutes as question answer. But during the first 3 minutes, one of the judges and all of the judges may interrupt.
Okay.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just a second. Okay, good morning, judges. My name is Divya Sari from Economic and Business Faculties, and today I would like to present to support the motion that the make higher education free during pandemic of COVID-19. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was not only public health that was disrupted, but also education that is proven by students who have resigned because of financial issues. Based on the case that happened on May, students from Universitas Diponegoro, and the number of 30 students have resigned based by financial issues. If this continues, the number of resignations will add up, and this should be our priority to stop it. Why? I will explain it in my argument. There are 2 points. First, the contribution that can be given from students, and second is the limited time owned by students. First is contribution. The university has a principle called Tridharma, which is education, research, and service. With the principles held by the university, we realize that the funds that needed for this are a lot, and that the funds are obtained from tuition fee. It means when these funds stop, the university will be in danger too. So it is the government responsibility needs to provide assistance to keep this contribution going. What contribution do I mean? Research. Let's take the example of with biotechnology research that's held by universities. This research requires manpower, time, and certainly funds. The purpose of this research is none other than the community for public. And second, dedication. Every student from a certain faculty can use their expertise to be utilized. For example, medical students can be used as a backup medical personnel in this pandemic. Psychology students can make counseling because this pandemic not only affects physical health, but also mentality for depressed people. And economic students can help with budgeting or making policies for villages. Just imagine, With the government providing financial assistance, this will be an incentive for students to continue their education and universities to keep run the operational activities, and contribution made to the community will certainly also help the government staff in prospering the community or the public. Thus, the impact of the assistance provided is very broad and can be beneficial for many parties, students themselves, institutions, community, and also government. Continuing to my second point, the time constraints students have or the limited time that students have. The college education system is different from schools. If at school, when students cannot continue their studies and forced out, there are programs that is available for them to complete it in short time. There is a package A for elementary school, package B for junior high school, and package C for high school. And it is an issue with university students because when they are forced out, they have to start all over again. Try to imagine when there are final semester students who are forced to leave, how much time, energy, and funds are wasted. Therefore, this proposal is an emergency for right now because it cannot be postponed. Regarding to my argument, this doesn't mean that I put aside basic education. I stated that both of them had different priorities during this pandemic era, and schools have received assistance from the government, such as the bus program. Surely this proposal came because of the current emergency. Surely this proposal came because of the current emergency condition that cannot be predicted how to overcome them and how long. I am sure this can be done. Maybe in the beginning it will be difficult to manage the budget for government, but this is the responsibility of the government, and if such condition like this continue for some time, I am sure the government will be able to adjust these new conditions later. So this will be so very much beneficial for many parties. And I believe this is my argument, and therefore with the current urgency and the impact, if education decrease, I believe this issue should receive more attention because students are an invisible state or asset or intangible asset that will be felt in the interest of the future. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the judges may proceed with the question.
Okay, Divya, let me ask you a question, yeah? You have to keep in mind that education is very much a participative process, yeah? So you can just give an education, but someone has to want it. They have to have a willingness to receive the education. So so the education will have value on it. So if we make the tuition free for the higher education, so I don't think that students will consider that education is as valuable as if they have to pay the tuition fee. What do you think about that, Divya?
Okay, so I believe this program, the free higher education programs, will be selective for not all students. There are many factors that can given to the students based on their based on their GPA or based on the background check, as if just like how the universities can check can have the background check to the family or to the guardian who paid for the tuition fee of each student. So what I mean by making this higher education free is not only applied to all students, but it can be selective to few students. So I believe there are students who are needed this help, this assistance, so it will be useful. But,
okay, which one?
And also by what I mean free education, as I said, there are a few factors how to select it. First, by the student's GPA and by the background check, and also maybe this program it doesn't really necessary for the international class student or for foreigner students.
If you have to choose, yeah, which one you will choose between a student with good GPA or the student with the lower economic background?
I believe I cannot justify it only only based by one factor only. I believe there should be a consideration between two factors, and we can say that when there's a student with financial issues, well, maybe his or her GPA is not good enough to be compete with another student. But there's another student with a really great GPA, but we believe that she or he are able to pay for the tuition fee. So I believe it cannot be justified like that. I believe we need to consider by those two factors. So I cannot choose either one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, stop of information, please, for Divya.
Yes.
Hello, good morning, Divya. My name is Prayang. I'm from FTKE. Okay, so
sorry, I'm sorry, the voice is not
education
so
free.
clear.
So, okay, so is it clear enough? Is it clear enough, Divya?
Try to repeat it again. Sorry, ma'am.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay, is it clear enough? Hello.
Hello. Yes,
Clear
yes,
enough?
yes. I can hear you clearly. Yeah, close enough.
Okay.
Ma'am, sorry, the video is not moving.
Higher education free, so it could one of the, it can make and it can be so therefore it can cause the overcapacity of the university, even on the faculty itself, and based on the
Sorry,
Hello?
you still have the pauses in your video. I cannot hear you clearly. I'm so sorry. If it might be hard, if I can actually hear you clearly, maybe you can write it on chat, maybe.
Hello.
Yeah, there's an echo from your video. There's an echo, so it doesn't sound really clear.
Hello. Okay, probably. Okay. Okay, it's okay. Probably I can give to another judge to ask you some question.
Okay.
While I'm preparing.
We have 5 minutes left. So
okay.
one of the judges.
I'm gonna ask a question.
Okay.
Ms. Prayang, will you proceed with the question?
Yes, yes, I can hear Bu Retno clearly.
Yes,
I cannot really hear Bu Prayang pretty clear.
Okay, so I'm gonna proceed with my questions.
Okay.
Okay. In your statement, you pinpoint the government assistance as the main answer to solve this problem, to help the students with financial crisis. However, we know that the government recently prioritizing on social and economic issues. And could you please give another solution rather than put the whole responsibility to the government assistance? Thank you.
Well, I believe this pandemic doesn't only affect education, as I said before. It also disrupted by public health, social, and economic. By my proposal, I didn't say that the education should be the first priority. The first priority should be for the social and economic for public. It is so, but the education needs more attention from the government. And if, ma'am, you said that it shouldn't be the full responsibility of the government to set this, I believe that education is every citizen's right to have. And if by what I said earlier, the contribution that can give to the public, I believe this will be beneficial for the government also. So the fund that will be given from the government is not going to be just a waste. That's for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is
We
there
have
any
2
question?
minutes
Maybe
left.
maybe I can hear Miss Praya again. Maybe.
We have 2 minutes left.
Hello, Divya. Can you hear me?
Hello, yeah, Miss Praya. Yes.
Okay. So the point of information from your statement is you say about higher education should be free. But for me, in my humble opinion, if the higher education could be free, it can cause the massive effect like the increasing of enrollment. Therefore, it can cause the overcapacity of the class for any faculty or any departments. So according to accreditation of BAN PT, it's supposed to be the ratio for teacher and student. One teacher is only for 20 students. So if the higher education free, it could be possible if the enrollment of any university can make a high amount of students. So how can you overcome about the overcapacity of that?
You have 1 minute. You have 1 minute
Okay, sir.
left to answer.
So I believe, okay. So I believe the students are exist now. So I believe every universities have their limit of students that they will have, and based by the lecturer that are available. If by your question, ma'am, is that you mean in the new period of let's say like next year, I believe every university still has the limit. So it doesn't mean when we make this higher education free, so everyone can apply for the universities. There are not factors to receive the students, but by test, by the background check, and anything else. So I believe every university has their limit to receive the students. So it's not going to be an overlap for the universities.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, 35 seconds left. I think this is the last moment. And we appreciate that Divya Sari has already taken her position in this competition. And thank you very much, Divya Sari, for participating.
Thank you very much for the judges.
For participating in this event. Thank you for all the
Okay.
judges. Yeah. See you next time. See you next time. Thank you. You may leave the room. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Oke, cek suara, Pak.
Oke, cek sound.
Jelaskan, Pak.
Ya, cek sound.
Cek sound. Cek
Bu Zuhra, masuk. Bu Zuhra, sebelum kita panggil yang kedua. Bu Zuhra. Bu Zuhra. Bu Zuhra. Bu Zuhra. Bu Zuhra. Suara saya cukup kedengaran kah?
Iya, clear enough, Pak Andri.
Ya, kalau gitu kita proceed dengan Rafif ya. Proceed dengan Rafif, setuju? Kita majukan aja Rafif, kita panggil, setuju? Bu Retno?
Ya.
Bu Prayang? Bu Zuhra? Bu Zuhra? Kita panggil Rafif ya. Rafif, kita panggil ya, Rafif ya. Rafif.
Ya, oke.
Sebentar, Rafif tadi karena sempat di remove, sekarang dia harus log out dulu, dia butuh waktu untuk masuk. Anyway, we can Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Good morning, Pak Andri. Sorry, I had to uninstall the Zoom app because I logged out and logged in with another account. It still sees me as the one being kicked out by the host, so I had to uninstall and reinstall it again from the beginning.
So he didn't recognize you as a good guy.
Probably not. But I
So
hope now.
Rafif, hold on a second. Let me set up the timekeeper. Hold on a second.
Yes.
Let me set up the timekeeper. That way,
Pak Andri, if I may ask, I some notes last night. Is it okay if I put it on the table? And it's just my handwriting notes.
Yes. As your normal NUDC preparation, which is normal, one NUDC. Okay, let me set up the timekeeper. Yeah. So now here with us the honorable and respected judges, Ibu Retno, Ibu Prayang, Ibu Zuhra. They are ready as your judges for today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mr. Ananda Rafif Maalik, you may present your case in 5 minutes. And however, the first 3 minutes, one of the judges, even all judges, are allowed to interrupt you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Another one is Mr. Richard Wibisono is also one of our honorable judges. Okay, Mr. Rafif, let me start the stopwatch. Okay. Please ready. 1, 2, 3, action.
Good morning, honorable judges. Good morning, Mrs. Prayang. Good morning, Mrs. Amalia Zura, Mrs. Retno, and Mr. Wibi and Mr. Andri. So today I would like to present a short argument, knowing that it's only limited 5 minutes, on my views why I believe that the government should make higher education free, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. First of all, I'm gonna break down how I'm gonna present this. I'm gonna make 3 assertions that is focusing on the financial challenges, the needs for government interference and government aid, and the last one is how the studying methods and the culture have changed since COVID-19 has struck. So first of all, the financial challenges that I'm gonna talk to you now is that we should all acknowledge that all students of higher education currently studying, they still depend highly on funds to fund their school needs, to fund their school tuition. They mostly depend on either their parents, their guardian, or they could even finance themselves. And now knowing that the COVID has struck Indonesia especially, and knowing that how the market economy has weakened, and it has affected the market chain as a whole. It has affected many sectors, starting from the tourism sector, the business sector, the education sector, all up until the food and supplies. So what I'm going to try and say in this focus is how the ability of someone's economy has weakened and therefore has affected how they deal with their spendings, especially on fulfilling college tuition fees. We should first take a look at how I analyze the spending of, I put in example one family. I put in example one family that makes around $1,000 to $2,000 a month in Indonesia. They may not make or even be able to spend that amount of money now, knowing that they may earn less than half or even less than 1/3 of what they used to earn. And then this has caused them to struggle more. And also this has put the student currently pursuing a degree with more pressure pressure of needing to finish their education on time, pressure of wondering, of being careful with what they do and predicting how long time constraint they need to finish their education. And this has also affected the education sector, and in particular how universities cope with the pandemic. We noticed that the classes have shifted to online classes, changed from before conventional physical interaction classes. Now that knowing that most of the students don't use the facilities from campus anymore, the physical facilities, they don't study in classes anymore, they move remotely to their homes, they're put at homes and the college are closed. That means that there's a difference of spending that should be reconsidered, knowing that they do not need to spend the money to cover the costs that they before have covered. For example, if they were studying before COVID, they needed to use the laboratory, they needed to use the projector screens and other stuff. These operational costs should be covered by the university, and the university should charge less than what they charged before, because also knowing from the points that I explained before. And then what I'm gonna continue, point number 2, is the needs for government aid. In government aid, in this case, the government should analyze and should collect data on how many people living remotely, especially outside Java, especially with their children currently also studying higher education, how they could cope also with this change in the method of how they study remotely. Because outside of Java, there are still many areas that are not 100% capable of supported in the proper basic infrastructure, technological infrastructure support that they have. There are many families outside of Java who's having a hard time having a proper internet connection, who doesn't have smartphones, or maybe cannot afford to have a laptop, and therefore there are some areas where conventional studies still needed to be practiced, while it is also endangering their safety at the same time. And then shifting to the third point is how the studying methods have changed and the cultural behaviors that have risen. The studying methods change. It also changed the basic emotion, the emotional connection between the lecturer, the professor, and the student that they're teaching. And it also changes the behavior of how the students communicate to their lecturers and professors. And this is also challenging because there are materials that needed to be practiced in front by practicum. For example, in engineering and in medical faculties, they have to make certain practices. They have to make certain operations for practice to be taken to be scored on for their scores, and this could not happen because all shifted.
You have 1 minute left.
And mostly
you have 1 minute left.
They have to focus on the theory, on the more theory studies. So I think besides this, we should take a look at the opportunities. As the classes have shifted online, people are starting to find ways on how to make profit and make a better condition.
20 minutes left.
All right, Rafif, point of information, please. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, Mrs. Prayang, you may.
Okay, Rafif, thank you. So how can you make sure that those students who has the opportunity for free higher education can study well and graduate on time after they taking the free tuition opportunity? Because at the other side for this opportunity, it can just be like a pandemic opportunity. It can be like only for their status as a student college. And maybe we can assume that they're not studying seriously because they can get the higher education very easy with the free tuition. So how can you overcome that?
I think the university should sit together with the government and should comply to government rules, and also the government needs to issue a regulation where they give the university independent freedom to make rules that makes a standard for students who are studying remotely, to make sure that they actually study and ensure the quality of study being given, and also ensure that they deliver quality results. Is they should make a standard on how students interact in classes. They should make a standards on how students should complete and give their assignments on time. This could be focused on how they interact in classes. For example, if we're in an online course in a class, all students should be all students are demanded to turn on their web cameras, and they should be always sitting in front of the camera, and they should be ready if there's a question to be answered. And then for making sure that they actually graduate on time, there's this belief that I believe that there should be no penalty in learning during this pandemic. Although we know the challenges of people actually taking advantage of the condition, but we should put on the good hope and the positive hope that if we give them extra room to actually breathe and actually take time to do their studies, even though that they may be delayed because of certain materials that could not be, certain classes that could not be done because they need practical practical scoring, then the university should actually prioritize in putting forward the classes that are easier, or the classes that are important but they could give more credit hours. For example, in the Faculty of Civil Engineering now, the new dean has issued a new curriculum where some of the side classes are now given more credit hours for the students to actually they take, and then if they pass the class, they could get more credit hours. And this means if they could get more credit hours, they could accumulate more score overall faster than before. So I think this is one of the example of the measurement that they could take, one of the steps that they could consider, and it is all actually already been in process for a few months.
Well, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rafif. Maybe other judge will deliver questions towards Rafif. We have 4 minutes left, actually. One or two questions, probably. So, Rafif,
Yeah, Mr.
did you go on the protest along with other students last week, demanding the rector to step down because of the 0% tuition fee?
I actually have read the news and followed some progress of the students marching for demanding for the less college tuition, and some even demanding for free college tuition. But I personally I did not participate physically on the street because my parents they do not give me permission to go outside. But I think I'm not for me, not going outside doesn't mean that I could not use my other platforms to support them in using my voice. So I've also been involved in some discussions with students from Unair, Surabaya, with my friends from Gunadarma. Gunadarma has also been recently on the news because they've been demanding their rector to make most of the tuition free because of some illogical and some calculations that they think that should be pardoned, especially during this pandemic. And knowing that those universities are also facing challenges, and the universities themselves, they also have to take care of their badan usaha and other stuff, so they have lots of things to consider. And so at the end of the day, I believe that there will be a meeting point, there will be a final agreement on how we could actually cope with this pandemic and find the solutions to these problems that have been always emerging.
Okay, Rafif, I have a question for you.
Yes, Mrs. Retno.
Okay. Well, free education is a good idea. However, the university also needs costs that they need to fund. Okay, like providing the internet connection and maintain the internet connection, also to maintain or to pay the lecturer, for example. And I think it's not ideal if the education is free, because there's no such privilege.
To respond to your question, Mrs. Retno, I think the what I was pointing out about the government aid was in one way also to help support the costs that need to be covered by universities. So we know that not all universities in general could afford to make college tuition free, but knowing that the motion today, we could see some gaps and some opportunities that we could put to good use and actually help the people in need. And we believe, I believe that every university have their savings, and either they could get loans from the government for this pandemic, or they could use their savings to cover the operational costs. If, say, Trisakti, in example, is not able to afford free college tuition because they need to cover the expensive costs, the operational costs. They need to pay the cleaners, they need to pay the staffs who are still working there, they need to pay the security guards, they need to pay for the
30 seconds left.
They need to pay for the software needs. I think it's possible that, and it's quite rational to also note that not every university is able to afford free tuition. Therefore, they could option to get loans, they could option to use their savings, or they could just reduce the cost in overall.
Getting loans is another problem. Loan is another. By taking loan can cause another problem to university, and we should note that not all university is like as prosperous as the second university.
Excuse me, time is up.
Okay.
Excuse me, time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, Rafif, it was an excellent delivery, and thank you for participating.
Thank you, Mrs.
And hopefully you also enjoy this moment.
Yes, I'm enjoying it.
We'll let you know the result by today or tomorrow.
Yes.
So we all wish you luck, actually. And thank you, and you may leave the room. Thank you, Rafif.
Thank you, Mr. Andri. Thank you, Mrs. Retno. Thank you, Mrs. Prayang, Mrs. Zura, and
yeah, good luck,
Rafif.
Good luck.
Okay. Hold on a second. Salam, Pak. Biasa, Pak.
Webinar.
Ya.
Oh, udah masuk.
Selamat siang, Pak, Bu.
Selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Selamat siang, Nicholas Murray. Samosir.
Ya, selamat siang, Pak.
Ya. Welcome to the 2020 NUDC Trisakti University. And now we are going to have your session here with us. Ibu Retno, Ibu Prayang, Ibu Amalia, and Mr. Rizat Wibisono will be your honorable judges. So you may present your case in 5 minutes, and you will given total of time 20 minutes. It means 5 minutes presentation and 15 minutes question and answers. However, during the first 3 minutes, the judge may interrupt you. So let me set up the timekeeper before you proceed with your case. Hold on a second, please. Mr. Nicholas Samasir, you may start.
So I can start for the statement itself?
Yes, you may start now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, good morning to all of you, all the lecturer and the judges also. And also, my name is Nicholas Satria Samosir, and I'm from Trisakti University, and I'm majoring in geological engineering. So I want to talk about the statement that you guys made. So the statement is that to make higher education free during the coronavirus. So from the statement itself, I will say that I agree with the idea because first of all, we as a student also, because it's online and we have to study from online also. So I think it's probably better for us to have free education. And also by this condition, all the countries, and especially Indonesia, we are suffering from by our economic activities, and also we are suffering from our financial problem, also like financial issues, and also from the government itself. They are overwhelmed by the situation because they are the one that have to make their decision, and also they are also overwhelmed by this situation because of the condition itself of COVID-19. And by this reason, I would say that many people, because also it is affecting the economic activities, it also affecting the people's financial problems. And from the financial problems itself, many people got fired from their jobs or company. Many people also get deduction from their salary. And that means many people also, because they have a children and maybe like they are a student also. So many students in Indonesia are suffering in this situation, mostly because maybe some of them are quitting the university because they couldn't afford for the tuition fee. And also many people, maybe the student who just applied for the university, they couldn't continue their dreams because of this COVID-19 that affecting their financial problems. So that means they couldn't continue to the higher level of education. Okay, maybe because of that, it's really important for the government to help the student, and figure it out how to prevent from all these things. Okay, maybe that's all for me for my statement.
You still have time.
Sorry, sir, you still mute your sound.
Okay, may I ask
Yes,
question?
please go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
Your last statement is you want government to assist students to make a free education in higher education, free tuition in higher education. So may I ask you that where will the money come from? If you want the government to do that, where do you think the money come from? Thank you.
So I know that the government, they must have like the state budget for the money itself, and also for the university. And I'm pretty sure that from the Ministry of Education and the Cultures itself, Kemendikbud, they also preserve the money for the university.
Okay. So.
Okay.
And
I have a question.
yes, sure.
Okay. Recently, some organization like Muhammadiyah and NU, they canceled their participation in program in receiving financial aid from the government. How do you think about that?
About the Muhammadiyah canceling the fee. Sorry, can you repeat your statement, please?
Well, the Ministry of Education has financial aid as a program that give financial aid to some educational institutions in dealing with this pandemic. But some of the big organizations such as NU and Muhammadiyah, they cancel their participation in this program. What do you think about it? I mean,
Actually, for me,
in your last statement that the government assistance is very important. However, some of them that we can say reject the aid.
Okay, for me, even though like some organization, they canceled maybe their help for the university or for other things, but the government itself, they are still ready to help us, because from the Minister of the Education and the Cultures, he said that he will provide us from the money from the state budget, and I'm pretty sure that he will keep the promise from himself, because we are the student, and we deserve the money also, because education is the #1 priority in this country. And also, I forgot to say the budget that I said before that the government have the state budget, and the budget came from the funds. The source of the funds came from the efficiency and the refocusing activities, like from each unit, maybe from the program within the Ministry of the Education and the Cultures itself.
Okay. So other questions for Mr. Samosir? We still have 7 minutes left. So Mr. Samosir, probably one question for you from me. So as far as the total budgets for the university, as the university has to pay all the fixed cost and variable cost. So what is your solution? In one hand, you want the university to reduce or even to free the tuition fee. On the other hand, is the university is faced with challenges such as paying the salaries for employees and maintaining the construction, so on and so forth. So what is your solution? How to harmonize these two opposing views?
So for me, as we know, in this condition, we couldn't say many things, because in COVID also, during this COVID also, many companies and many shops that are being shut down from the government itself, to reduce people for having a distance with the other people. and it also will affect the economics in the economy system in Indonesia. And therefore, like I said before, for me especially, most of the people, all like maybe all the people in Indonesia will get like deduction from their salary. Therefore, I think, and then from the fund itself, from the government, it's our rights to get the fund, because as they promised, they will give the money to us. So I think from the university, so the money can, the money that the government gave to the university also can give, like maybe for the employees, and maybe not all, but like some of them, it can help the payment for the people or for the employee.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Nicholas Samosir. Other judges probably willing to question Mr. Samosir? Bu Prayang, probably. Bu Zuhra?
Okay. So thank you, Pandri. Hello, Nicholas.
Hello.
So point of information is about the free tuition. You are an engineering student, right? So
Yes.
as we know, we have an additional fee for practical work and so on. So if that's free, do you think that it could make a massive effect for the university and also the company itself, the company for the student go for practical work? So how's your opinion?
Actually, I haven't mentioned about that, and because it's practical work. So I mean, the tuition fee itself from the government, it's for the semester tuition fee. So it's like for the semester itself. So it's not for the practical work. But yeah, actually, as I said before, it's for the semester tuition fee. So it's not for the practical work. So maybe it's like different topic when it comes to the practical work, because we also participating in that case. So also it's our responsibility to pay for the practical work, as an engineering student.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator Samosir.
Thank you so much.
Ibu Zuhra or Mr. Rizat Wibisono probably would ask a question. We have 2 minutes left, actually. One more question, if there is one. So, if there is none for question, then we should thank Mr. Nicholas Samosir for participating in this 2020 NUDC at Universitas Trisakti level.
Okay,
So,
can I ask another question?
Yes, one more question. Yes, the last 2 minutes.
Okay. What can community do in dealing with this problem?
Sorry, pardon me?
What can community do to fix this problem?
To fix this problem?
Yeah, about the tuition. I mean,
so for me,
okay.
So for me, to fix this problem, because during this time it must be like a really hard time for us, especially for maybe from the lecturer, also from the student, also, and it's also affecting all the economic system in this country. So maybe for me, by the help of the government itself, as they promise they will help us for the tuition fee, even though it's only for the semester tuition.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The community, not the government. The community.
The community.
Yes.
So like, sorry, you mean like our community, like this from the student itself, or?
Oh, outside the government.
Outside the government. Yeah, of course, for the community. So it's not about the education. So it's like wholesome.
No, the role of community to save the education, which is most of the students facing financial crisis that threaten the continuance of their studies. I mean,
okay,
we can put the whole burden into the government's responsibility.
We have
But
30 minutes, 30 seconds left.
Please answer.
Okay. Okay. So for me, especially from the community itself, maybe outside the government, maybe many like, for example, companies, for example, like XL or like Indosat, or they support like they have like the discount or like the free quota for the student itself, or maybe for the Zoom and for the online stuff. So I think that can fix the problem of from this tuition, outside the tuition fee and so on. Yeah.
Okay, the time is up. The time is up. So thank you, Mr. Nicholas Samosir, for participating in this 2020 NUDC at Universitas Trisakti level. Hope you enjoy this moment, and we will move forward, hopefully, to the next level. Thank you, and you may leave the room. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
So now we are going to... Hello. Assalamualaikum, Vanessa. How are you today? Vanessa, are you hearing me? Are you listening? Vanessa?
Halo, Pak.
Halo, how are you? Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Bentar, Pak.
You are not invisible.
Iya, Pak. Ini ada background-nya sebentar, Pak.
You might want to turn off the background.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, now it looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vanessa.
Yes.
Welcome to the 2020 NUDC Universitas Trisakti level. Hopefully you go through to the next level. Here with us, all respected judges. There is Ibu Retno, Ibu Prayang, Ibu Amalia Zuhra, and Mr. Rashad Wibisono will be your honorable judges for today.
Okay.
As we mentioned earlier, you will be given 5 minutes and then remaining 15 minutes for question answer. However, during the first 2 minutes, if there is one of the judges raise hands, then she or he might question you questions.
Okay, okay.
Ready, Vanessa?
Yes.
Ready? Let me set up the timekeeper, please. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Let me set up the timekeeper. Hold on a second. Okay. 1, 2, 3, ready.
Okay. Honorable judges, this is Vanessa, representative of Art and Design Faculty. The motion for debate today is make higher education free during the pandemic of COVID-19. And this House believes that it is true. Therefore, this House will argue for the motion. In late 2019, the coronavirus outbreak in China and then spread worldwide until March 2nd found its first victim in Indonesia and still going on until now. The COVID-19 has affected many sectors. One of them is educational system in the world, leading to universities closure, not only in Indonesia, but nearly worldwide. To this closure, Indonesia government decided for universities to continue the education through online learning during the pandemic outbreak. For this online learning, so many obstacles found by the students, from financial to connection access. From the financial point of view, not all students can afford the tuition fees. Some of the universities still haven't got any funding from the local government, and some think the funding given is insufficient. Also, the possibilities for universities to free the tuition fees. This is why this house will present specific reasons and evidences why it is need to make higher education free during the pandemic of COVID-19. First, it is very beneficial for those whose family couldn't work during the pandemic. Parents of most students had been affected financially as an impact of the pandemic. Based on the EMSI survey, 83% of the student respondents said that their parents' income had declined as a result of COVID-19 outbreak. The least that can be done is to free the tuition fees during this time, remembering there are so many students who are less fortunate and don't have the equipment to support their online learning. In fact, there are numerous sources of evidence that claims disadvantaged students are not receiving anywhere near the sort of benefits that online learning institutions are trying to give. Some caused by they have no reliable technology beyond a mobile phone. Some of the students also think they feel guilty for using the money their family has and regretted paying so much for their course. Online learning is also not as convenient as a conventional learning. Some say they find it difficult and to ask questions and to access libraries as they wanted to go to universities in person. Especially those major which has more practical courses such as laboratorium and studio. Charging students to pay for full fees for a service that they aren't getting is actually frankly unfair. Second, the latest government's financial fund is as inadequate to address the concern of the student financial problem during the pandemic. Yes, some of the universities have offered tuition fees assistance for certain students with emergency financial needs. And a sum of money in some universities, they say to provide internet assistance for online learning with nominal around 200,000 until 300,000 per student. But was it enough? Months of online learning took nearly thousands of rupiah for single student. The MISI respondents showed that they spent approximately 50,000 rupiah per week on a mobile data. Meanwhile, for the last 4 months, which is 16 weeks, they have spent around 800,000 rupiah for mobile data only, not to mention the increase of electricity in each student household because of the electric equipment. Put aside, they still have to pay for college tuition fees. With this, government's fund assistance is proven too small to bring significant change for the students. Therefore, the tuition fees itself should be free or at least cut without the need for the students to request it first. Third, for state universities, single tuition fees is used for universities' operational costs. Therefore, it is likely possible for single tuition fees in state universities to be freed, unlike private universities, which rely 90% of on students' tuition fees to pay for the teachers and educational staff salary. How do we address this problem? Can we really compare between the state university and private university? No, throughout the year, private university fees is much more expensive than the state university. The government's full assistance always focus on much more focus on the state universities. Meanwhile, private universities nearly forgotten despite its contribution in Indonesia. This could also affect on the educational staff. Can they really pay their daily needs with this? No. There is a very good chance tuition costs could increase at a faster rate to compensate for the losses. And no one wanted to happen because long before COVID-19, the tuition fees had brought poor and middle-class students to their knees. Speaker didn't say this out of evidence and without considering the effect on government's financial fund budget. How can we make higher education free during the pandemic, especially in private university? As Syaiful Huda, as the head of Commission Representative Council of Indonesia State, for private universities who has trouble with financial can be helped by assistance. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. So one of the judges may ask one or two questions.
Okay.
We might want to start with Ms. Prayang, probably, or Ibu Amalia, or Ibu Retno, or Pak Rashad, probably.
Pak Andri,
Yes.
I think Vanessa can keep talking and finish her presentation.
Okay.
While we wait until the judge asking question. Thank you.
Let's finish up Vanessa?
Yes. As I mentioned before, especially in private university, as Syaiful Huda, as the head of Commission Representative Council of Indonesia said, for private universities who has trouble with financial can be helped by assistance from budget allocations, which the Ministry of Education and Culture has done. With such data, it is possible for university tuition fees to be freed during this pandemic. To conclude, according to the impact of COVID-19 on higher education on the student financial evidence, and with the considerations of government's funding, this House strongly believes that higher education should be made free during the pandemic of COVID-19 for the well-being of students and related society. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. Yes.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Okay, go ahead, Bu Retno.
Okay, for private universities,
Yes.
do you think that the financial aid given by the government, if they propose for it, can cover the whole cost that the university should expend?
For private university, yes.
Yeah.
For private university, does the
Yeah,
financial aid given?
Yeah, if the tuition fee is free from all the students.
If the tuition fees is free for private university, does it can it cover?
Mhm.
Yes.
But we know that private university rely 90%, as you
Yes.
said, on the tuition fee from the students.
Yes. As I said, for private universities, they rely 90% of the students' tuition fees to pay for the educational staff salaries, but from as Syaiful Huda, as the head of Commission Representative Council of Indonesia said, it is possible for private universities to get help from the Ministry of Education and Culture has done, from the budget allocation that they has done. But maybe the financial fund they will get, they have to wait until all the state universities is getting help. I mean, the Ministry of Education and Culture will prioritize the state universities first, and then they go to private universities like that.
So private university is not the priority then?
Yes.
Okay. So it is likely that it's almost impossible for the private university to give free charging of the students in paying their tuition fee, right?
It is not impossible, but it's likely possible because, as Syaiful Huda said, they have budget allocations for private universities too, because there are around 80% of private universities in Indonesia that still needed government's aid, government's fund.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate your opinion. Perhaps
Thank
next
you.
judges.
Thank you for your questions, Ms. Retno.
Mesa,
Yes, Ms. Maria.
How can you ensure that the quality of the education is still good if the tuition is free? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for the question, Ms. Amalia. I will try to answer. How can I ensure the quality of education is good if the tuition fees is free? Actually, the tuition fee is free for our students, but the lecturers and educational staff still getting paid from the government's from the government's budget allocations that I have mentioned before. So I think it's back to the lecturers in each universities, how they can keep maintaining good quality of their students, because it will affect on the alumni and the students after they graduate. And to bring a good images of the universities mentioned.
Okay.
Hello, Miss Amalia. I'm sorry, I think your mic is turned off.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Yes, thank you for your question, Miss Amalia.
All right, Vanessa, Pak Andri. So, how many time remaining?
Yes, 3 minutes left. And please,
Okay.
Ms. Prayang, proceed with the question.
Okay, thank you. Point of information, please. Hello, Vanessa.
Yes, Ms. Prayang.
So, you are a FSRD student, and I'm sure you have a subjects like studios and any practical class, right?
Yes.
So, does the free tuition also include those subjects? Because we know you have to add more money.
Yes.
Okay, so what's your opinion, please?
What's my opinion for online learning for FSRD students?
Yeah, if the free tuition, it also include the studio fee or any practical fee. So how's your opinion? Because somehow the university itself can get more income from those practical work, right? Okay, so how's your opinion?
Oh, I see.
You have 2 minutes left.
Oh, okay. I'll try to answer Ms. Prayang Sani Aulia questions. Thank you for your questions. For the practical courses, I think that we have to add more money to for ourselves to get through these courses. And I think for the single tuition fees itself to be freed is not included the practical and the studios fees. I mean, the students will feel relief if the tuition fees is freed, but I think they will be okay to still pay the practical fees for the practical fees, because from the first semester there is no help. I mean, there is no fund for us students to buy equipment for our studies. So I think for the tuition fees itself to be free, it will be a big help for FSD students.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate for your answer.
Thank you, Ms. Prayang, for your question.
So, any of the judges will question? We have 20 seconds left. It means we are at the end of the session. Thank you, Vanessa, for your participating in this 2020 NUDC at Universitas Trisakti. We hope all your best. We hope you'll be the next who will be the delegates of Trisakti. Okay, and thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. See you.
See you. Thank you, judges.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Aku tadi nggak terlalu denger si Vanessa, pelan suaranya.
Iya.
Jelas,
aku sih jelas. Jadi bisa kita inilah.
Jelas. Tapi
kita
kayaknya handling questions-nya kurang ya.
Ya, betul. Setuju. Nanti kita lagi tunggu namanya Richard
ya.
Richard dari Fakultas, Pak.
Halo? Udah gini.
FKG ya? Oh, oke.
Bentar ya. Ini dibanding Pilmapres lebih lama sedikit ya, lebih waktunya lebih cukup terpakai kok. Kemarin Pilmapres ada waktu-waktu yang agak nggak terpakai. Ini lebih hidup diskusinya sekarang saya pikir.
Lebih padat ya.
Padat ya, betul setuju.
Ini kita lanjut sampai peserta ke-8 atau nanti di break dulu untuk istirahat?
Nah, langsung aja ya, kelihatannya dikit
Langsung
lagi
aja.
Ya. Dikit lagi kelihatannya.
Baik.
3 lagi nih, dikit lagi.
Get through aja.
Langsung go through, langsung kita ini break. Baru nanti kita janjian mau kapan lagi ketemunya jam berapa nanti. Ya, boleh.
Hari ini aja kita selesaikan.
Kita habisin dulu yang ininya. Kita selesaikan dulu pesan-pesannya. Bentar ya, saya tunggu.
Richard is really good, but it's a shame that his portfolio isn't as padded as some of our other contestants. I was wondering where he was last year because I think we'd have a lot of diverse selections of debaters if he was there last year as well.
Okay, now Rane. How do you spell your name? How do you spell your name? Rane or Rain?
Rain.
Rain. Oh, do you go with Rain? Okay. Rain, welcome to the 2020 NUDC of Universitas Trisakti. Here with us, the honorable judges. There is Ibu Prayang, Ibu Zuhra, Ibu Retno, Mr. Rashad Wibisono. And today you will be given 5 minutes to present your case. And after that, we are going to enter the session of question and answer. So you may proceed with your argument. 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, can I be heard clearly from this mic?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
So, I would like to start this position by defining the motion that will be the basis of my argument that this House believes to make higher education free during the pandemic of COVID-19. I choose to define this motion as that during the hardships brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, higher education, as in colleges and universities, should be available free of charge to students. The country I choose to limit this motion to is Indonesia, because this country is a perfect example of a COVID-19 hard-stricken country whose students really need this free higher education, but is not in an economic capability to do so. The best model to implement this is by having government legislation that allows students to be not required to pay any tuition fee due to the economic condition through the use of a combination between government subsidiary and a government-mandated student bond system from enterprise. Thus, it will promote an excellent work experience in the future, in addition to allowing a free education system that will not overwhelm our country's monetary reserve, which is seeing big usage due to the expenses required to control the pandemic. Now, the argument I would like to present as why having a free higher education is a necessity during the COVID-19 pandemic is that by not doing so, it will create a disastrous future in our efforts to recover from the recession. With the current economic crisis and the spike in the unemployment number, ensuring that the current generation of students would be able to transition into the workforce as our economy recovers is of the utmost importance, because the fact is that the economic condition of many students is at the lowest points of their lives due to this crisis now, and that the students are at risk of being forced to drop out of their studies due to not being unable to cope up with this tuition. Not only with education, some of the students are finding difficulty to make amends with other necessities and daily expenses. And with the education being such a vital part in the continuation of our workforce and the sustainability of our economy, we cannot let such students to sacrifice not only their future, but our future as well as a country in order to make ends and stay afloat for another day. It is for our common interest that we remove this hurdle from something that is as important as education, because by making education free, we guarantee that the maximum number of students choosing to continue their higher education are no longer worried by tuition. Thus, we'll be ready to usher our future workforce to bring us into a period of rapid recovery, which can be clearly seen following the example of free education countries like Finland and Germany, which are recovering from the pandemic really fast due to their sustainability of their education policies. To be fair, it is reasonable for higher education institutions to be still requiring the money obtained from tuitions, because even though the campus facilities are not being used, they will not be able to maintain their lectures and staff's payroll, thus even creating more unemployment, and they would not be able to maintain these facilities, which they eventually reopen. However, this fee should not be paid by the incapable students. In times like this, the government have the social responsibility to step up and be responsible to allocate some of the Federal Reserve System to support the education system from collapse and come up with a new sustainable education policy to handle this crisis. This is why many Western countries are being able to handle this crisis so well, because of the sustainability of their education system. It's free because they know it's absolutely important to their future. Even when the economy goes crashing down, they can always bounce back because their future economic players doesn't crash with it too. Because they realize the truth is, as important as it is to channel much needed resources to recover from the pandemic, we also need to look what lies ahead in this pandemic, which is to sustain this recovery. The huge majority of higher education institutions in this country are privately owned, I note you, not public. And the number of students in risk of breaking their education in this country makes up of 75 to 80% of all higher education institutions in this country. Think of that number. We just cannot let a huge chunk of students in the entire country in the risk of breaking their study because of this crisis. And while our country is still not in the economic capability to implement such a universal free education policy, this COVID-19 pandemic is a special case, one with the future at our risk, and we will need an immediate and radical attention. And thus, for our economy to return on its feet, we will be needing our future generation to be ready, capable to enter the workforce and re-stimulate the economy. We cannot let them having been distracted by something such as tuition when there are so many more things to worry about in this crisis. Thus, we will need a free higher education during this pandemic. Otherwise, our future in the country will be at stake. Thank you. That is all from me for my argument. Has the 5 minutes been used already?
Right. Hello, Rain.
Yeah, can we hear?
I'm Rachan. I'm also one of the judges. I'd like to ask you a question.
Okay.
This is a question. This is a simple question, but I'd like to ask you on the policy on how you'd be able to offload the costs of freeing higher education to universities or to private universities, because of course they're not exactly funded by the government, and of course they're also they're not a non-profit organization. So I would like to ask how your policies would be in terms of how to be able to offload that cost to make private higher education free.
Okay, excellent question. So as in Western countries like Finland and Germany, they have a government legislation that requires all private or public, all kinds of institutions to get some kind of financial aid from the government, because they have a policy that has a higher tax rate from our country, which is why the government can subsidize this the institutions in that country. However, I know that our country is not capable of doing such things because our country is not as developed as them, which is why I proposed in that my argument before, we use a combination of a government subsidiary plus using a enterprise bond system, which can be offered by companies, so that they will be the companies that are still running during the COVID-19 pandemic that are unaffected, which is like telecommunications. They can afford to invest some of their money to finance the students' education in exchange for the students to be working for them for a period of time, like 6 months after their graduation, in exchange of being funded of their education. It is an excellent system that has been proven to be used in countries that are developing before, like Singapore, and because of that, they can develop really quickly because of using such kind of policies. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your answer, Rain. I'll give this to Bu Retno, Bu Prayang, and Bu Dura for the other questions.
Please, Bu Retno, Bu Prayang, Bu Zuhra, or Mr. Risa, if you have a question.
Okay. My questions would be, how will this policy ensure that the quality that the institution, the education institution gives, will have good quality instead of, how, if the tuition fee is excluded?
Okay, so as I explained from before, the institution will be still able to maintain the quality of their education because they will still be receiving money, but it's just not from the students. It will be a combination from the government and the companies that will be giving bonds to the students. So the tuition will be charged from the government legislation and from the companies that will be offering the student bonds. Because by having the student bonds, the companies that are not affected by the COVID-19 pandemic will be indirectly financing the students' education, but not like in the form of scholarship, but in the form of a working agreement, where after they graduate, they will be agreeing to be working with the company for like a short period of time, like 6 months to 2 years maximum. By doing so, not only that we can the institution can survive during this pandemic with the money obtained from them, but we are also improving the quality of our workforce, because soon after they graduate, they will be immediately receiving work experience. So it's like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone during a problem such as like this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your answer.
Okay, Rain, let me ask you one question. As we know that Indonesia has a program of compulsory 12 years education, yeah. So higher education it's not included in the 12 years compulsory education. So what do you think about that? Do you have any opinion about that? If we relate that with the motion that you want, you are agree with the free of the tuition in higher education?
Okay, so in my opinion, that all countries eventually, in order to become a full developed country, need to make education, even until the highest form of education, free of charge. Because by doing so, you can ensure that the graduates of its citizens are ensuring the requirements of the workforce of the modern times. Because in the modern workforce, you simply just cannot work with just 12 years of education until high school. You need these specialized abilities, because in the modern times, almost all works are specialized now. Many works are being replaced by automation, and this is why having higher education is such of importance degree. However, I realized that Indonesia is still a developing country, not a developed country. That is why we are still not capable, because we don't have the money to make the financial obligation to make higher education free. That is why I suggest that we use this combination of these two models during the pandemic. Why I choose to limit this free education only during the pandemic? Because during this pandemic we have a huge problem that many students in our country are in risk of being uneducated anymore, because they cannot
You have 1 minute left, please.
Pay tuition. That is why we need to focus this. The government need to focus on this free education policy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. That is all from my answer.
Okay, I think it is less than a minute left. So any other question from judges? No?
Ibu Prayang, will you ask another question?
I think we have just 1 minute left than 1 minute.
Okay, there's a possibility to devalue a college degree if the students get a free higher education. So what do you think about it?
I think that is a incorrect assumption, because even in countries that offer free education, such as Finland and Germany, there is still a very high sense of value in education, even though it's free, because they know how important it is for them in order to sustain their life. Thus, I believe if someone is care about their future, they will not devalue the education even though it's free, and which is why we need to make education free.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the time is up. The time is up. And thank you for Rain for participating in Trisakti 2020 NUDC. And hopefully you'll be the chosen one. And see if we can inform the decision in 1 or 2 days. Thank you, Rain, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sekarang Ayub masuk.
Oke.
Halo, selamat siang. Halo, Ayub. How are you, Ayub? How are you doing?
I'm good, Pak. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Ayub. Ayub, welcome to the 2020 NUDC Trisakti, Universitas Trisakti level. So hopefully, if you are the lucky one, then you'll be representing Trisakti for the next round. So today with us, there is Ibu Prayang, Ibu Retno, Mr. Rashad, and Ibu Amelia Zuhra as your honorable judges. So you'll be given 5 minutes to present your case. Afterwards, there is question and answer for 15 minutes. So I'll set the timekeeper. I'll set the timekeeper. Hold on, please. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, action.
Good morning, honorable judges. I'm here to present my idea about why we should make higher education free during the pandemic of COVID-19. I agree that higher education should be free during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is due because of families, workers, their financials, they are having financial burdens due to the pandemic. I believe that every person in this world wants access to education. Even in Indonesia's constitution, Article 31, number 1 to be exact, states that everyone has the right to access to basic education. Furthermore, countries in Europe, especially for Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, they all give free education. The reason behind why those countries, European countries that I mentioned, can have free education, it is due to their high taxes. So that and because of those high taxes, the government has funding to make a free education for the people. For Indonesia itself, we set 20% of the state budget to be spent in education. Even though we have 20% of our budget being spent, yet our fellow Indonesian currently still lacks basic education. And furthermore, even lack of basic needs such as electricity. Currently, there are 433 villages that does not have access to electricity in the province of Papua and also in Maluku. If the government does not have the resources to fund those basic needs before the pandemic, how can the government have the resources now? Since the health sector are being prioritized more than other sectors to combat COVID-19. Therefore, this will lead to the government charging if the government use taxation as a source of income to fund the free higher education program, therefore this will lead the government charging more taxes towards the people, to the people. This will create another problem for the government. So why would the government use people's tax for education while the people themselves can't afford basic needs, such as I mentioned before, electricity or baby food, and more due to them losing their jobs or getting pay cut. Therefore, they can't actually buy basic necessity. Other than that, companies are also going bankrupt. So their government companies, for government state state companies also are COVID-19. Therefore, taxation is not truly the solution to fund the free higher education program. Another option for the government is by using loans, but the government loan will also damage the economy in the long run. Indonesia has many debts. One of them is 48 trillion rupiah to PLN, perusahaan listrik negara. The Indonesian government owned
Have 1 minute left for presentation.
own company that provides electricity to the majority of Indonesian electricity power. Therefore, why would we use resources to fund the free education? To fund the free education. So now how can we provide free higher education while not making a financial burden towards the people and not lowering the education standard? Since the government cannot provide any funding for the free higher education program, therefore the private sectors, such as private banks or companies, have to take initiative, since companies have savings, investments, basically their own money. The idea is the government works together with the university to make an agreement with the private sectors. Right, thank you very much.
Okay, point of information, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Good afternoon, Ayu. Okay, so my POI is about free higher education program, or as we can say, free tuition. The plan is supported by the government. But if the circumstances just changing rapidly, just as we know, this pandemic it came very sudden, and it has made so many changes for any sectors, which can make the support from the government for the fee tuition itself can stop anytime. So is there any solution to overcome that?
Yeah, because I ran out of time, I cannot actually, so I'll tell, this is one of my ideas. So my idea about that is the fund, it should not be dependent on the government, since we all know that that COVID-19, combating COVID-19 is more important than anything else right now, other than the economy, of course. So therefore, we should focus more on the private sectors, since we can make an agreement with them. For example, the private sector working together with universities. So how it goes is like this: university will provide a supply of graduate students to the companies that are working in the free higher education program, and in return, the private sectors will invest money to make a free higher education, to make the higher education program free. Therefore, it's some like the university gives the student to the companies, and the companies will invest back. That's one of the ways to not be dependent on government funds or yeah.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate that.
Other question perhaps from Bu Zuhra?
You mentioned before in your presentation that you compare Indonesia with other countries.
Correct.
Do you think is it compatible to compare Indonesia with Denmark or Finland, as you mentioned? Do you have any reason why you compare us with that countries? Thank you.
All right. The reason why I compare those countries with Indonesia is because the system exists. The reason free education exists in this world, I'm trying to prove that. And we can adapt that idea or not, their system, sorry, or we can make a new one that is better suitable for Indonesia, because we all know the situation that in Indonesia and other countries are different. But then why can European countries have more free education, both in both higher education and basic education? Is because there's something to it, which is the system that they created, and also for example, in Japan, for example, also in Asia, I forgot to mention that in Asia also, Japan also have free higher education. And I'm just stating that because the government, it's possible for the government to implement those systems to some extent, because why to some extent? Because again, the situation here in other countries is different, but it is not possible to implement those systems. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, if we compare, yeah, the next question will come from me. If we compare the population between Indonesia and those countries you mentioned, I think it's quite difficult to make such comparison. I mean, how would you find students in Indonesia to get free higher education? I mean, it's quite it's quite impossible to make all of the fee free of charge for every student. So we have to make a priority for those who deserve to receive free education. So how will you set the priority? Which one deserves the free education, and which one should still pay for the tuition fee?
Well, for prioritizing, we have what you call, I forgot the English word for it. Basically, okay, for prioritizing all those students that deserve, we have that system. Actually, we already implemented that system. It's called scholarship, which one deserve more than the other. That's the reason behind this scholarship, because we all know that many people that are talented in academics and can't afford education, that they should be given a chance, which is scholarship, which they should apply for scholarship. And and also for prioritizing which students deserve more and not, is well, in my opinion, all students has the same rights and access to education, no matter what their background is, as long as they're capable on doing their academics, if their academic scores, they're capable in learning, then they have rights. For me, there should not be any priority or not in terms of who deserve more. But again, for me, for who deserve more, we should not differentiate the population like, all right, this person is a little bit smarter, we should differentiate by which one is smart. If he's smarter, then we should give him a scholarship, because that's what scholarship is for. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Last question, perhaps. So, Ayub, as far as the tuition fee, so what do you think? What, in one hand, you are asking, you are proposing higher education should be free. On the other hand, the university should pay for the fixed cost and the variable cost. So, how do you combine the two? You cannot push the university to stop paying the employees.
Yeah, that's true.
What is your idea?
My idea is, again, to ask help from the private sector to invest. In return, the graduate students from the university will have a contract with those companies. Those universities will produce quality students, quality graduates, sorry. And we must remember that by them investing, by us making the university free, the tuition free, it should not decrease the quality of the students, the graduates. Therefore, if we promise the private sectors that we will give them quality students, that in return it will provide, those students will be providing income for them and also work experience.
Sorry, the time is up.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ayub, for participating in this 2020 NUDC at Universitas Trisakti level. So hopefully you'll be the best, and you'll be moving forward to the next round, hopefully. Anyway, thank you very much for your coming here, and see you next time. You may leave the room. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, judges. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Now, Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum.
Kedengaran tidak?
Ya, cukup kedengaran. Bagus.
Ya. Baik. Ya, makasih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Welcome to 2020 NUDC at Universitas Trisakti level. Mr. Raihan Muflih, you are selected from Faculty of Medicine. Yeah. Welcome, join us. And here with us, there are honorable judges, Ibu Retno, Ibu Prayang, Ibu Zuhra, and Mr. Rashad Wibisono. So you'll be given 5 minutes to present the case. And
5 menit ya?
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then next 15 minutes for question and answer.
Question. Can we go further than 5 minutes?
Yes, 5 minutes, stop presentation, and then it will continued by question and answer session.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Let me set up the timekeeper.
Okay. Do you need me to run a timer as well? Or
yes, I'm going to run the timekeeper.
Okay.
Stopwatch.
Makasih, Pak.
Hold on a second, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, ready.
Okay. I'll begin.
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, judges. Good afternoon, fellow respected juries and holder of the room. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Raihan, and I'm of the Faculty of Medicine. I represent them, and I will agree to the motion that we should make higher education free during the pandemic of COVID-19. Now, to start with, I'll begin with an old adage, which resonates with the core of why I believe this motion should stand. I agree with it. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. The onset of the pandemic is leaving many large questions, many unknowns, which we don't know about anything or much of anything. The future of many industries and their projected path in the next 5 to 10 years are unknown. And it's a global event, and estimated 94% of the global workforce are under some sort of movement control order, as according to the ILO. And almost all students are under distance learning environments, as per following WHO's mandate on reducing or minimizing the close contact. And this certainly, if anything, is a groundbreaking moment in history. We're at an inflection in a point of time. We're at an impasse point. Some sectors look like they're collapsing. To name some examples, tourism, aviation maybe, shipping, and some look like prospective replacements. For example, the digitization of many parts of society. So where do you go from here? While that might seem like a bit of a segue from the motion, I'm just stating a fact that of this situation we find ourselves in and why this is necessary. And this begs the question, how do we prepare ourselves for that better future, that a better recovery post-crisis? And the answer is reskilling and retraining the workforce for a better recovery prognosis. Now, as I said before, the workforce is in a dire situation. Many are being off for load, forced leave without pay, and many industries are inactive: tourism, hospitality, and others are direly affected: logistics and industry. So in order to reskill and let a nation adapt to the new reality, the new normal, the new paradigm after COVID-19, we have to make higher education free. Now, what is that? Now, to begin with, I will define the higher education in this case as a course run by tertiary learning institutes. So I mean that by community colleges or universities that offers the opportunity to learn new skills. And the pandemic as a natural disaster that's caused by an outbreak of a disease prevalent across multiple countries or continents. Now, first, I'll talk about the practicality of such a feat of making it higher education free, and why, despite it seems it's more achievable than the circumstances. Firstly, we must understand that during the pandemic, we are undergoing distance learning, and that learning takes place over the internet, and students study at home, listening to lectures from their lectures on the internet. And one thing to note here is that the internet is a robust platform with mature platforms that have been baked for decades and decades. And while that has been consistent, it's only now because of the situation that we've accepted it wholesale. And then we get a good look at the advantage. And I will name one advantage, which is very critical here. It is a scalable platform with minimal investment. Once the fees are paid, the server doesn't care whether you have 10 students, 20 students, 50, 100, or whatever, until it reaches the capacity. So, which may well be into the hundreds. And this is in comparison to traditional in-person learning, which requires physical space to be set aside, where space is limited, time, and when space is limited, and when your space is limited, you could the other choice is to extend time, so I can have additional batches come in, and that is an inefficiency of the system. You need to have line, you need to pay the lectures for more time, and by making online lectures for front and center of the system, with supplementary experiences depending on the course that they're taking, it can vastly reduce the cost necessary to run such a course. And this is important because of the second part of the equation, that we want to make it free. The prospective learners will not pay to learn. And while this sounds odd, it is necessary, as I'll later expand on in one of my main points, that it is better to think of this as a sunk cost, or as an investment where you're effectively running at a loss, to teach them as an investment for the future. By minimizing costs, this maximizes the potential gain of such an action. And in fact, this would allow other programs to run alongside, such as government incentives to make people take reskilling courses, such as using free higher education in order to make it more appealing to people. And this reskilling and the government incentives will be tied together in a binding contract to make it more appealing for people to take the reskilling course. And it is important we do this sooner rather than later. A workforce does not train itself in the blink of an eye, and it is often said that 10,000 hours is needed in order to be trained in a skill. And if we do this training after COVID-19 has ended, we're already behind on the curve. We'll already be late. When we could have been making money, we're still recovering. So we need to do it now. So now I will get to why we need to make higher education free in the midst of the COVID-19 epidemic. And first of all, I'd like to say that it is the imperative of the government. we know that the basis of the government and its society is the social contract. It binds the government and its subjects. In exchange for certain liberties and conditions, the government has a duty to look after its citizens. Maybe you can describe it as protection money, which catches the gist of it. It's maybe a true definition, but it's essentially the government has a responsibility, and you can say it exists solely to protect its people from extraordinary circumstances. And what is COVID-19? A global pandemic, if not an extraordinary circumstances as a result of a natural disaster.
You have
It is
30 seconds left.
It is therefore the duty of the government to uphold the social contract and to begin relief efforts to mitigate the effect of natural disaster pandemic. And in this case, severe unemployment is the effect the government has a duty to uphold as part of the contract. So in times like these, the social unrest is high, and especially so when unemployment is similarly high and economy is dire straits. But we must never discount the power of purpose, that people, when granted a clear future, will veer away from radicalizing ideas. So we can see in the US, where the lack of purpose and lack of employment has been driving up participation and rights. So this too is the responsibility of the government to provide stabilizing factors in the form of power of purpose, a whole shared ecosystem with a clear vision that unites politicians, organizations, unions, and workers into one goal: provide jobs and prospects to those in need to minimize the effects of the natural disaster. Now, in terms of practicality, we must see that there are three forces at play in this epidemic: deglobalization, digitization, and corporate consolidation. So in order to realign to this new paradigm, we need to retrain workforce now, as I've said earlier. As opposed to waiting for the industry and economy to recover, it's better to crash start it now at a time when we're already losing money, and as a form of investment, rather than later when we could have been generating money or recovering and still we're stagnating. So, and it's best that we do it now. There's a lot of manpower not being properly allocated. People have been fired from the jobs. People have been laid off because of the current situation, because of the corporate consolidation. So we can reallocate and reskill those workers to other industries which are more promising. For example, one example we can take: airlines. Airlines, they're not operating at full efficiency, or maybe they're not operating at all. The stewardesses, we can reskill them to a job that can fit their job, that's similar to their current job requirements, such as, for example, since they know high stress situations and they're trained in basic first aid, we can have them be assistant nurses in hospitals, which would relieve the healthcare workers. Or maybe we could have managerial positions move to logistics positions in other sectors in order to help with the deglobalization effort. And this means that we can realign our workforce to the new future that is provided by COVID-19. And this, of course, as I said, will be tied to stimulus packages to encourage investment into those new industries, to funnel the manpower where it is expected to be needed, the digitization of the workforce. We will definitely need more in that sector. So it is an opportunity for us to realign the workforce by making higher education free and reallocating that workforce, giving them a purpose into that new skill, into that new place, new sector where they could put their skills to use. And then once the crisis is over, we've aligned ourselves to the new paradigm, and we'd be able to recover much more quickly. We'd be able to soften the blow of COVID-19. So in order to summarize, why I believe to make higher education free is so we could, as the main objective, is to retrain skilled workers to adapt to the new paradigm. And why? First of all, it is because of the duty of care. It is the social contract of government. And second, it is because of the potential economic gain that we could have after the pandemic is over. Thank you.
Okay, PRI, please.
Oh, yes, thank you. Oh, yes.
All right. Okay, good afternoon, Raihan. So
afternoon.
For me, free tuition or free higher education course or program. Okay, so I will ask you as a medical student, right? You're from medical student, right? Okay, as we know, for the med school itself, it's just like the most spender, or maybe you can say the top spender for the tuition cost. And you still be sure that the free tuition is a good idea for the upcoming education system. But how can we be so sure for the free tuition, especially for the medical school itself? In the other hand, the medical aspect also need also need help, just like in this circumstances. So
Yes.
how can you overcome that?
How can I overcome?
Yep.
So you're asking the medical, since medical is so expensive, how can we justify it to make it free? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So while we do I acknowledge that there's a need in the medical industry, and so in the medical sector, that we are lacking a lot of manpower, right? So and as we know, being a doctor is very expensive, and it's a very long process. Of course, taking a long time, a long year. And what I need to discount is that in this case, it would be a very, very long-term investment if you're making it during the time of the pandemic. And maybe you can say it would almost be too late, right? So if, but what I'm trying to focus on are more achievable, more achievable job courses as the main focal point of the government incentives. So what I'm referring to is that, for example, if you have someone who's already trained in hospitality, right? For example, in the hotel industry, they'd be more accustomed to the job of a nurse, and they can by holding courses of free higher education, so then, like, for example, a crash course on how to become a nurse, for example, a condensed course, we could immediately fill that gap in a dynamic way, reallocating that lost workforce into something that's useful. So for the thing about doctors is that, okay, the thing is, they're always all in need, and sure, it is very expensive, but we have to acknowledge the fact that we were not ready for this situation, and we have to accept the cost. And how is there any better way of making sure there are more doctors than to make education free? This lowers the barrier of entry. More people can get in. There's more prospective doctors out there, right? And maybe in the future, if another COVID-19 strikes, we won't be in such a dire situation. So that's my justification on why we should make higher education free. Yes, it is expensive, but as we know, we're not ready, or we are not ready when COVID-19 strikes. And next time it strikes, or another pandemic strikes, we should be ready. And that's why making doctor education free and realigning the workforce should be critical to the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Really appreciate that.
So we have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. So one last question, please.
Bu Retno, are you going to ask?
Yes, please.
You go ahead, please.
Okay, right. I have a question. This is basically a comparison. What are the pros and cons of, what are the pros of making higher education free compared to just using that money and infuse it to companies that is about to go under because of the pandemic, and just keep the current workforce as it is right now, instead of worrying about what's going to in the future? Because of course, if the company goes bankrupt, there is nothing that, I mean, no matter how much workforce we have, there is no companies that is going to be able to take them.
So okay, right. So your question is what's the pros and cons of making higher education free versus just supplanting companies, right?
Yes.
Okay, right. So first of all, I need to explain that supplanting companies is not an effective way. First of all, what you're doing is that you're making a zombie company that will take longer for it to recover, right? So if basically the companies right now are in a state of limbo. If you continue just pumping money into them, so then they won't collapse. They'll continue. They'll just stay in that state of limbo because the government doesn't have an excess of money to like completely prop it up so that they can go be successful, right? So even during the recovery phase, they're going to lag behind other companies, new companies, which could have a fresh start because they'll have to clear that debt first, right? So my view of looking at it is that instead of investing in companies in which we don't know their future is, instead of we could just realign the workforce entirely to the era of digitization, new areas which have more promise, rather than making zombie companies which might not necessarily be the right course of action. And of course, I would like to say that this, of course, is a risk. But as I've said before, it is investment, and all types of investments have risk. And the alternative is, of course, doing nothing. But why would you do nothing in this case? When you're already losing money, losing a bit more money to retrain your workforce to a new future is much more profitable than probably propping up your failing companies. I'd say in this case we have to let capitalism.
30 seconds left.
We have to let capitalism do its course, and let companies who are failing fail, and let new companies come up and with better ideas that improve on them instead, so they can come up with a clean sheet instead of like going through debt in the recovery process. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raihan Muflih. And thank you for participating in this NUDC at Trisakti. And hopefully you'll be the chosen one, and we'll let you know as soon as possible the result. Yeah. And we all wish you the best. And I think you are the last participants. And now you may leave the room and say goodbye to the judges. Say thank you to the judges.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, juries. Terima kasih semuanya. Terima kasih. Maaf atas kesalahannya.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you are very welcome.
See you next time.
See you.
Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita sudah di penghujung acara ini. Kelihatannya kita break dulu ya. Break dulu. Kapan kira-kira kita mau discuss?
Mungkin lebih baik selesai hari ini, Pak Andri. Jadi misalnya
yes. Hari ini.
Sholat,
yeah.
Terus kita mungkin langsung share untuk penilaiannya, begitu. Itu kan mungkin Bu Retno, Bu Zura, dan Wibi juga.
Nah, saya setuju, Bu.
Lebih baik sih hari ini aja kita selesaikan.
Betul. Nah, tinggal jamnya mau jam berapa?
Kita break 1 jam mungkin ya?
1 jam, oke, 1 jam. 1 jam kita break ya. Nah, berarti jam 1, jam 2 ya, kita mulai jam 2.00 kita mulai ya.
Ya.
Wibi setuju?
Baik, Pak.
Jam 2.00 kita mulai ya, mungkinnya. Berarti ini recordingnya saya matikan sebagai bukti bahwa kita sudah melakukan NUDC. Jadi Bapak Ibu sekalian, terima kasih sudah menjadi judges. Ini adalah end of our session today, and we'll see each other by 14 p.m. Thank you, and we'll see at 14 p.m. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Oke, thank you semuanya.
Bye.